Welcome back to ALEC TV. I'm Tom McLaughlin coming to you once again from the 46th ALEC Annual Meeting in Austin, Texas. And I'm here with Tim Doescher from the Heritage Foundation. How you doing, Tim?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Pleasure to have you.
Yeah.
So you and I were talking about earlier about kind of finding a conservative voice in the new media frontier. What can you tell me about that? I know you guys are working on some stuff over there, right?
Yeah, well, specifically, Heritage has this awesome shop that produces relevant and timely video content, audio content, and mainly podcasting content, which is where I come in here. And we noticed a while ago that conservatives own talk radio. There's no question about it. But as we see talk radio kind of going down a little bit more, we see this idea of podcasting rising.
Right.
And so what we did was a couple years ago, we decided to we have an old radio studio. It had, dust on the countertops and boxes and mics that weren't being used. And we decided to turn it into a full-fledged podcasting studio. And so now Heritage has 6 different regular podcasts. Some of them are every day, and some of them are once a week, and some of them are twice a month. And so we have really found a really cool way to start communicating our message more through podcasting.
That's awesome. So, as someone who's kind of building that space for conservatives in the new media and podcasting, what's the secret sauce that you guys kind of go for? What's really the X factor?
That's a good question. I think the biggest thing is being consistent. When you come out and you first start your podcast, it's going to be terrible.
Right.
You're going to have to give yourself a grace period. Nobody's going to be an expert at it. And the cool thing about podcasting is there is no formula for it. You can do whatever it is. But the main thing to keep in mind is forming a connection with the people that you're trying to reach. So for us, it's people who need to learn conservative policy ideas or just policy issues at a 101 level.
Right.
We try and keep our experts or anybody who we interview on this thing, we try and keep them, we'll tell them to stop. Stop real quick, let's redo it in an easier to understand way. And then we mix in music, we mix in dramatic narration, we mix in good editing. It's a storytelling way, not just a preaching way.
And it's a full-time process, it seems, as well.
It takes a lot of time. Yes, it takes a lot of time to put together a good product, but we're seeing the benefits of it. We're reaching lots of people. Yeah.
So tell me about this one right here, Heritage Explains. What can you tell me about this particular podcast?
Heritage Explains was an idea that Michelle Cordero, my co-host, came up with when she was listening to the New York Times Daily Podcast. It's a great podcast. They're just complete experts. They've got 12 full-time staff. They even have musicians on call to write the score for their podcast. It's incredible. They take it to a next level and they reach 1 million people. It's unbelievable. And they do it every day, five days a week. It's incredible. And we realize it's like, well, they might have the resources, but we can do this too. We might not be able to do it every day, but we can do it once a week. We can make it 15 to 20 minutes, and we can tell a story. We can tell a story that connects with people and then sets them up for an interview. A lot of podcasts just go into interviews.
Right.
But we try and set it up in a theater of the mind kind of way.
And this is so important for conservatives as well, because you look at, you said before how conservatives own talk show radio, but you're looking at the age creep on that. It's going up and up and up and up. And conservatives need to start connecting more with the younger generation as well. So it's kind of a new way to reach them.
It's amazing. Yes, that's true. It's amazing though what happens when we start to look into who's listening to our podcasts. You'd be surprised at how old the listener is. Now there are a lot of young people listening for sure, but you'd be surprised that when you go on. One of the things that we do to help get more listeners is we will post the episode on YouTube and just put a picture of the episode up, and you'd be surprised how thousands of people will listen to it on YouTube.
Wow.
And you can look down and see the comments of, and some people have pictures of themselves as their profile picture.
Right.
You'd be surprised at how old, some of the people are that listen to these podcasts. And so, we are seeing, younger people listen, but we're also finding new ways to connect with just people in general.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So my last question for you is: there's a lot of conservative orgs out there, and a lot of young conservatives, a lot of even growing conservative orgs that are trying to break into this space.
Yeah.
What would your advice be as someone who runs a podcast every day and does it pretty successfully? What would your advice to one of those orgs be that are trying to break in?
1, just do it. 2, take diligent notes of how it sounds when you first start it, and don't be afraid to change it. 3, do it regularly. The only way that you're going to form a crowd is if they think that you're going to be there when they refresh their podcasts every week. They're going to want a new episode to form a relationship and a bond with you. And once you have that, it's grassroots. They will tell their friends, "Oh, I'm listening to this podcast about all these different policy issues, and they break it down, and I really feel like I'm ahead of the game when I go to class." And that's a good way of doing it. Yeah.
Awesome. Well,
Yeah.
Tim, thank you for your time today. Thank you for talking to me about all this. I really appreciate it. Tim Doescher from the Heritage Foundation.
Awesome.
Keep it right here for more Alec TV.